Hi everyone and welcome back. This is Sky coming on to talk to you about the Mars retrograde cycles that we will be having from December 6th, 2024 until February 23rd, 2025. I wanted to come on and make a video about this as yes, we have actually been in a time period of Mars being shadow since September, and that will be lasting all the way until May of 2025. So we've got this really potent, life-changing Mars transit happening throughout the final quarter of 2024 and lasting through about the first two quarters of 2025, most potent from December 6th, 2024 to February 23rd, 2025. In this video, I want to spend a bit of time talking about this Mars retrograde cycle and how we can come through it a bit more favorably, as yes, we are working with Mars not only retrograde, but retrograde on a cusp, as we seem to be having all retrograde cycles happening on cusps. We just came out of Pluto being retrograde for a few years on the Capricorn and Aquarius cusp, and we have, and now we're going to have Mars retrograding opposite Pluto on the cusp of Leo and Cancer. Also, Mars is debilitated in Cancer. So it's another transit to add to the long list of challenging transits we're having in this transitional 2024 to 2025 time. In this video, I'll give you guys some intuitive messages about that, and we will come through it. So also, I wanted to give you guys a reminder that the final two live premieres in this season of live premieres will be happening on the next two Fridays. Yes, on December 13th, 2024, I will be hosting the live premiere of the Global Dynamics for the final chapter of 2024 video. That will be happening at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Central, and 9 p.m. Eastern time. And then on December 20th, the consecutive Friday, I will be hosting the 2025 year ahead forecasts for all signs, also at the same time of day. So those will be the final two live premieres. I'll also be doing a giveaway at the 2025 year ahead forecast. I'm going to be giving away some free Patreon subscriptions. So be sure to come to that live premiere, as only people attending the live premiere will be considered. And I'll be drawing some names out of hats to email you guys over some free 3-month memberships to Patreon. So yes, let's get into the Mars retrograde video, probably a little bit shorter today as I'm really starting to turn my focus to these major videos coming up in these 2 next weeks. But yes, let's talk about Mars retrograde. So intuitively, first off, okay, Mars retrograde in Leo, we'll talk about that first, and then I'll put the dates in the description box of what days Mars will transit back into Cancer, and then all of the shadow and retrograde dates as well, so you can refer to that. So yeah, Mars retrograde in Leo, I'm just pulling up my notes here. So this deals with misplaced energy and attention and focus, as well as an ego identity crisis, being that it is opposite Pluto, as Pluto just changed signs. So there's a very transformed space that we're coming from when we're thinking about how we use our energy and how we project as people. We have these debilitated mutual receptions of Jupiter and Mercury also happening, which is a similar tone to a certain like systemic change, or like having a totally different infrastructure or system that we're working through at both a very physical level and I think at a more personalized internal level. So a lot of us are adjusting to that during this time, and the Mars retrograde is well placed because always Mars retrogrades deal with realizing, okay, pushing in this way is not working, or there's no leverage, but I keep pushing, right? Because Mars is about outward push. It's about deliberate and direct application of masculine energy. And when it goes into retrograde, oftentimes it means that we are pushing on something that can't move, or we're misplacing our direct outward energy. So there's always a need with Mars retrograde transits, as they both Venus and Mars don't retrograde every year like the other transits, so they're more rare. It's a more rare astrology transit. There's always a need to strongly think about, what am I pushing for? What is my end result here? What am I intending to accomplish through this outward effort, through this direct and deliberate push? And Mars retrograde in Leo is going to make the ego kind of complicated with this. Like, I need to see that I get my intended result, even if it's impossible. So we're going to get a lot of people essentially like pushing against a brick wall, or pushing against something that can't really move. And this transit of Mars retrograde in Leo, especially as we're going through December, it's going to start to work on our mind a little bit. And we're going to start thinking about some of the things that we're moving towards, some of the things that we're pushing against. And there's going to be a different tone coming through on those things. Also, the sign of Leo is about presence. It's about the face. It rules over our ego, our identity, and the actions that we take in our lives that generate how other people understand us. So Mars retrograde here may mean that we have a bit of a cognitive dissonance also with the other transits happening, Pluto and Aquarius, and the debilitated mutual reception of Jupiter and Mercury. This is repeated even with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. It's a major sort of overtone of the current transits that is bringing up this question, like, are these choices, are these actions supporting who you really want to be at a higher level? So not just what people think about you, not just, receiving consensus from other people about who you are, but truly analyzing how the actions of this time and of the recent past are generating a greater level identity that transcends just what other people think. As there could be a frustration here, right? Mars retrograde always generates a frustration because some type of leverage is not coming through, or because some type of push is not generating the result that is needed. And in this case, it's the signs of both Leo and Cancer. So that, of course, is the identity with Leo, the outward expression, the feeling of authority as well. There could be control authority issues with Mars retrograde in Leo, feeling like we have some type of power that is not able to actually be exercised. So definitely like a paper tiger syndrome with Mars retrograde in Leo. There could be power centers or areas where authority used to exist, but now it could be a bit more clumsy, or it could be harder for some of those levers to be pulled. And I think that everybody in their own experience could see, like, okay, I used to pull this lever, or I used to have this kind of control in my life, and now, I'm seeing that I actually need to work on a different pathway, or there are other things that I can control that I'm not maybe working with responsibly. It's very much like a case of knowing what we can control and what we can't control, and not getting too freaked out about that which we cannot control, but rather leaning a different way and trying to act more positively and affect more positive change in areas that are more healthily under our control. Control freaks will be very visible during this time. People who are very dictatorial will be very visible, and there could even be like tantrums or anger problems, right? With Mars retrograde in any fire sign, there can be retaliatory kind of measures, which sometimes might have the effects that people expect or not. Paper tiger retaliation, and also then unexpected power from places that we didn't think were as strong as they show themselves to be. So it's kind of like strength, authority, control, all of those things kind of not functioning in the preconceived ways, or functioning in a like retrograde fashion. So also backward power complexes, or power moving in reverse, or authority being used in ways that are less positive, or considered less positive. Like the consensus may be negative about the way that certain powers are used, or the way that certain controls are indicated here. And then, okay, so when Mars moves back into Cancer, yes, this will actually be on January 6th. So we go through the entire month of December with Mars retrograde in Leo. Then on the 6th of January, Mars moves back into Cancer, where it stays retrograde until February 23rd. So that first full month, about month and a half through January and February, we will have that Mars retrograde in Cancer. Now that's a very, how do I explain it? It's a frustrating time. It's kind of like a wet blanket feeling. Mars in Cancer, of course, it's debilitated in Cancer. This deals with difficulties within the family dynamic. This deals with familial authority problems. So like who has power over a family unit, or how control or power may be channeling in a more beneath the surface way, right? Or in a more feminine way. This concept of sort of soft power, maybe, with Mars retrograde in Cancer, or soft power being used in an odd or frustrating way. that is something that we will be seeing in January and February. Also, what I had written down for that is obviously housing issues. Okay, Mars retrograde in Cancer. There could be many people, especially if that's hitting your chart, realizing that they have to make quite strong changes with their housing. Moving could be indicated for some people there. And also moving for reasons that feel frustrating. Okay. But I think also because of the Pluto opposition that we had on this cusp, and because of the ways that Jupiter and Mercury are going to start moving in a better form through January, by the time Mars retrogrades back into Cancer, they're going to break up that mutual debilitated reception. I believe that the frustration that you may be having, whether it's in your housing or family issues or dealing with control dynamics in your life, I believe that those frustrations will be soothed. And I believe that we have a very strong opportunity through these frustrating issues that many people are going through to find really long-running solutions, or to really finally begin to put the language onto long-running problems, meaning that we can see the end in sight, or we can see how these are resolved, or we can make out more of an accommodating path for some of these long-running problems, as that will be the main challenge of this entire Mars retrograde cycle, is like paths that finally put language to a problem, that move us in the right direction out of them or into better situations. Also, I feel that the retrograde cycle on both of these signs, Cancer and Leo, it's kind of like going to show us where there's a lot of rage, or where there is sort of an inflaming effect. So it could deal with like the inflammatory response in the body. It could deal with curbing certain autoimmune diseases. It could also deal with, anger, temper, or anything that's reminiscent of something like flaring up. There could be some type of crisis relating to fires, like wildfires. There could be also some type of solution perhaps here to that, or a need to develop solutions to things which are flaring up in a sense. So I think that this transit is going to really work on us finding longer term solutions to like extinguish. There's a need for like an extinguisher or some kind of extinguishing force or structure in order to calm some of these issues. So I also feel that there's going to be a lot of damage control done during this time, which means there must be some amount of damage. So I'm seeing people really seeking out relief mechanisms. So there could be like a quick minimizing or a quick extinguishing happening throughout January, from January actually until April of 2025. And I do see some people totally at the end of a road. Okay, so maybe they've been tolerating certain inflammation for a while, and some people can like really throw their hands up and be, ready to hand in the resignation in some cases, or ready to take a break, or ready to get out of town for a while. There's a feeling of the gauntlet kind of narrowing here, which is something we've had over these last few years, and I think we really reach one of the most narrowed points of certain paths during this Mars retrograde cycle, and it's going to lead people to maybe make a mad dash to the opening, essentially, or wanting to escalate or accelerate through these more narrow paths. So there's going to be less attributing of attention and energy to slowing mechanisms. What do I mean by this? So, for example, needing to slow down, turn things off, quit for a while without any type of resolution, and like basking in difficulty, or going through the same repetitive problems over and over again without some type of greater resolution. This is going to get very dense here, as there's some kind of cosmic energy that really wants people to come to the grander resolutions here, or wants people to really find a way through this narrowing path and kind of break through, almost like a narrowing cave, like with that light at the end of the tunnel, breaking through to the vista, breaking through to the opening, or to the more natural ambient effect, rather than these like walled off or enclosed cycles, which have been very prevalent since the 2023 year cycle and are a big part of 2025, but with an end in sight. So ends in sight. What does that mean to you? Also, what does it mean to you to not just acknowledge that there's a narrowing, or to not just acknowledge that there's a density, but what does it mean to you to actually understand how that is gotten through or how that is overcome? Okay. What does it mean to you to understand the dynamics that reinforce density, that reinforce walled off, contractual, narrowed, or slim, kind of difficult to traverse paths? What does it mean to you to perhaps resolve the anomaly that reinforces that? And also, what does it mean to you to understand the timing of it? How much longer does it go? Is there a need to turn around? Is there a need to run through? The key will be not distilling too much, and in some cases, not accepting this status too easily and making grander changes, or in other cases, knowing at the very least how long it goes on. So the real key, and some of this imagery might be kind of difficult, but the real key of this time is to not get bogged down in the fog, essentially, or to not get stuck in these narrowed, claustrophobic, dense feelings. Okay? As a lot of these are kind of compounded by these ego identity crises represented by the Pluto-Mars opposition. Right when Pluto moved into Aquarius for the final time, which I made a video about, you can thumb through my channel if you like, to find the Pluto in Aquarius final movement video. When that happened, we also had Mars being in shadow and preparing to go retrograde as it is now, and Mars is going to move back and it's going to exactly oppose Pluto. Both of these planets are ruled by Scorpio, and they are on the ego identity axis of Leo and Aquarius, and Scorpio is the sign of deep transformation. So we simply really cannot afford to maintain certain egos or identities that reinforce these narrowed pathways or reinforce these densities. There are transformations of self, different ideas about how we use our resources, different ideas about the needs of our projection or why we're projecting in a certain way, and also how these decisions or resolutions affect these statuses that we're now in. So for a lot of people, this is a complicated time because there is an ethereal or a psychological way that most of this is functioning. I mean, there is a physical component to it, but lesser so than it's been in a long time, since really the Uranus-Jupiter conjunctions in Taurus before June of 2024. So we've gone now into this 6-month cycle, June to December, and then this is going to finalize from December to May, okay? And then as we get to the final Jupiter-Saturn squares, as that's really intersecting with this, the Jupiter-Mercury opposition, mutual debilitated reception is intersecting with this. And what it's all revealing is a need to adapt to a different way of looking things, a need to not hold ourselves back so much, a need to not get in our own ways, a need to not reinforce or perpetuate densities or narrowing cycles, and a need also to allow certain systems that are also supporting that to dissolve or to be adapted or changed. We really cannot afford to force stability in these constructs because that stability, I think, is too dense and too narrowed. So we're getting to that point where things also back, we're kind of jumping all over the place here, but it's just a stream of consciousness, so that's fine. Back in 2022, it was very open and kind of infinite feeling. And then there was a major narrowing that came in 2023. And this narrowing continued through 2024. And then it got to a point where we had to really think about what this path is around June of 2024, and then that has intensified here and will continue to intensify and transform over these next 6 weeks and the entire 2025 year cycle. As we maintain the Jupiter-Saturn squares through about the first half of it, will deal specifically with coming to one mind about how we integrate these different parts of ourselves, how we integrate the material reality, as well as our goal spectrum, as well as self-actualization, as well as our ancestral or historical relevance into one path or into something that really gives to each level of this equation. We can't really afford to be focused on one component. We have to be very grand in our puzzle solving in a way. And that is what's going to solve all of this, but it takes a lot of focus. It takes a reduction of distraction, and it requires us also to understand what is not acceptable, what we can't put ourselves through, essentially what has become too narrowed or too dense to do that. And this Mars retrograde is going to really hone in on that. And it's going to really question the ego identity component of it, meaning like, to what extent is my self-perception or also my expectation around how I want others to perceive me, how is that wrapped up in the enforcement of the difficulty of this problem or of this environment? And how can I work along those lines to open up the path a little bit, to take some of the constraints off, to honor also the needs of my body. You know, body as a temple is a big thing here as well, with the way Saturn and Neptune are integrating in Pisces. It's not hitting this Mars retrograde much, but it very much connects into obviously the Jupiter-Saturn squares that we're talking about, which are bringing this super psychological context to this discussion, and really bringing in a lot of need to reroute our thinking a little bit and introduce some new mindsets, perhaps some new philosophies, and refine our processing, our mental processing, and refining also our realization for who we are and how we're moving forward to better suit our body, our goals, and essentially a greater state of health, as a lot of inflammation must be curved during this Mars retrograde transit. So anyway, everyone, I'm going to leave you with that note today. Thank you so much for being here on YouTube. A little bit shorter today, as I'm about to prepare for the two most important videos of the year on this channel. Again, come see me on December 13th and December 20th consecutively for Global Dynamics for the final chapter of 2024, as well as the 2025 year ahead forecasts, where I will be doing a giveaway for free Patreon subscriptions. And we'll just also be ringing in the end of this calendar year cycle and introducing 2025. Hit the subscribe button below and turn on the bell notifications, and hit the thumbs up to help get this video out there. Those are wonderful free ways to support this channel. And yes, you can check out the description box below to see the dates for this transit, a little bit of more information on that, as well as you can find my Patreon page, my mailing list, where I do a free monthly newsletter. And you can also check out a free trial on Patreon. And yes, you can also use the code 2025 when you're checking out to get a discount on your first membership too. I'm trying to really offer something for everyone over there. Thank you all so much for being here, and I hope to see you the next 2 Fridays for some really awesome videos and live premiere space. Much love. Bye.